everybody. We are doing a reading meeting presentation for you now. We did do a live session for this presentation just before the holidays, but we wanted to do a recording of it as well so that anybody who couldn't make it would be able to get all the information as well. So we're just going to be going through 10 top tips that you can use at home to support you and your child with their reading and their reading development. So tip 1 is for us as the adults to really try and demonstrate to the children a love of reading and the purpose that there is for reading and excitement and enthusiasm for reading. So the children really feed off us. The children, they sort of, if we're happy and excited about things, they become happy and excited as well. So we've really got to try and show them that we love reading and how much we value the importance of reading, and they will feed off that. So if you're reading a book at home, maybe you're reading a novel of your own or something, sharing that with the children, saying, oh, I'm reading this really good book, it's about this, or I really like the book I'm reading at the moment because it's about this, or sharing things, other reasons for reading, so not just storybooks. So for example, sharing with them that you're reading a recipe for maybe how to bake a cake and show them how important it is that you're able to read that. Maybe you're reading a message on your phone from a family member or a friend. Maybe you are reading a letter that comes in the post, or some instructions for how to build some new furniture you've got. And there's lots of all sorts of different reasons that we're reading all the time, isn't there? But sort of pointing that out to the children so that they aspire to want to be able to do that as well. I know quite often at school in the book corner, children will come over with a book and say, oh, will you read this book to me, which I absolutely love to do. But I will say to them, oh, you'll be able to do this soon, won't you? And then when I'm reading it to them, I'll be sort of reading aloud and saying to them, oh, I think this is going to happen next. What do you think? Oh, I'm really excited to find out what the character's going to do next. So really making them feel enthusiastic as well, and they will feed off that and develop that love of learning and reading. So tip number 2 is reading to your child. So no matter what age the children are, reading to them is just so important, and trying to get reading to your child into sort of into your routine is a really good way to do it. So get the children used to expecting you to read to them, such as at bedtime, and such a good way to settle them down for the night as well, reading a story together. It's lovely quality time, and get into a habit, making it a habitual thing that you're reading to them. There's a little statistic there that children who are read to, at least 3 times a week by a family member are almost twice as likely to score in the top 25% in reading compared to children who are read to less than 3 times a week. So that was from the Literacy Project in 2017. So, and there are lots of other similar sort of statistics that you can find out there about how important it is for the children to be read to, and how much of a big impact being read to as a young child has on the children's reading ability. As they grow up and into adulthood. So sharing stories, non-fiction books, poems, rhymes, newspapers, comic books, recipe books and instruction books, like I mentioned before. All sorts of different things can be read to the children. It doesn't always have to be, a story that you read to them. And discussing different word meanings that come up, and making sure the children understand what you're reading to them, talking about what's happening in the book and discussing as you go along. And not stopping reading to them when they are able to read for themselves as well. So even if the children, when they're older and they're in Key Stage 2 and going up into high school, it's still really, such an important thing to read to them. And then you can read books that are at a higher level than they'd be able to read to themselves. So for example, in reception, we often read picture books like Julia Donaldson books, for example, and many of the children wouldn't be able to read that book entirely by themselves, but us reading it to them is exposing them to sort of those higher level language, and sort of expanding their their knowledge and their understanding, whilst they're reading books in their reading lessons that are at the right level for them to do themselves. So tip number 2, read to your children all the time, as much as you can. Tip number 3, so practicing the children's sound cards. So the little flashcards that some of the children will have in their book bags and reading wallets, some little flashcards that'll have the sound on one side, and on the other side there'll be a picture and sometimes a little rhyme as well to go with it. So practicing that instant recognition of the sounds is so important. So getting them to just know instantly what that sound is, and that means single letter sounds as well, like k and a, and then moving on to digraph sounds, so like a and e, and having that instant recognition will help them massively with their reading. So you can trace over the sounds with a magic finger, so to help them learn the formation. At home, you could write the sounds out on card or paper. If we're not, we aren't able to give you sound cards from school at the moment, so you could sort of make your own for now. Making words with the sound cards as well is something the children often really like to do. So getting their sound cards out and then you saying a word and they try and build the word with the right sounds. It's a really nice activity as well. And there is a video link down there to a YouTube video, and that just models how to say the sounds correctly, because some of the sounds, if not pronounced in the right way, can be a little bit confusing for the children. So they're what we call the pure sounds. So an example of one of these is the sound that we would have for M, so capital letter M, but the sound is M. Now, quite often a mispronunciation of that is M with like an on the end, which is not, it's not right. The sound is M. Same with sounds like S. Sometimes it's incorrectly said as S or L as well. It's not the right way. So it's when they're sort of putting an on the end. So they're not the right way of pronouncing it. So those sounds would be and L for the L sound and S for S. So that video just shows you that, so that you're aware of which way is the right way to say it, and which way we should be modelling to the children. Then tip number 4 is our high frequency words. So when the children are in school and we give them the high frequency word cards to practice, they're often they're always in 2 different colours. So yellow and blue are the ones that I give from my class. And they will have a set of words on at a time. So if I just move where my video is, I put a little picture of the top of the word list. So there's actually 100 words, and they're split into phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 and phase 5. And then they're split into little sets. So there's 25 sets in total. And we're really aiming for the children to be able to instantly sight read those words, all 100 of them, by the time they're sort of, well into the year 1 year. So we're really working on building that up as they work through reception and year 1. And we do teach them in the order that they come. So set 1, set 2, set 3, and we don't move on to the following set until they know that previous set as instantly reading. So, for example, set 5, the children could sound it out. They could read it as can, so using their phonics to sound it out and blend it. And that's fine if that's how they need to do it to begin with, but we wouldn't be wanting to move them on to the next set of words until they actually can just read them as can, dad, had, back. So reading it as a full word instantly. So that is the purpose of these words, is to build up the children's bank of words that they do not need to sound out all the time. So we obviously give you them when the children are in school, but like with sound cards, you could get some coloured paper or card and write out your own words. So have a look at the word list, see, check which ones the children know already, and then make your own little set for where you've got to. I know in the phonics video lessons that I'm doing, we go over a different set in each lesson, and I make it very clear to the parents, sort of where we are with the learning of those words, so that they know, which ones to look at home with the children. And then when the children are reading their books on the Active Learn site, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, when they are reading the storybooks, if you know, for example, that they have learned all of set 5 words here, they know them straight away, they don't need to use their sounds. When they are then reading a storybook and it's got those words in, the children we need to be encouraging them to read it as a full word, not sounding it out, because what they sometimes do is get into a little bit of a habit of just automatically, going can, when actually they know the word can. So a little tip that I gave some of my parents the other week was that when they first look at the page that they're going to be reading, I sometimes tell them to look at the sentence or the sentences at the bottom and just see if there are any words that they think they know already. So then they can sort of go through and be like, oh, that one's the, I know that one. Or, oh, there's go, I know that one, and sort of point them out. And then when they then are ready to read the full sentence, that just sort of gives them that confidence and knowledge that when they're reading it, they will know to read those as a full word and only to use their phonics to sound out the unfamiliar words. And it really helps them build up their fluency as well. So that's our high frequency words. Tip number 5 is the importance of where and when we do reading with the children. So some of it might seem like, quite obvious, but trying to make sure that it's a quiet environment with minimal distractions is really important. So, turn the TV off, tablets and things put away, if possible, going in a different room to any younger siblings or anybody who might be trying to work. So trying to sort of set aside a nice quiet area with nothing else really going on around there to do the reading, and it makes a world of difference. I know at school, if I try and read with the children in a busy classroom where there's lots of children are having a wonderful time in the role play area, reenacting a story, that child that I'd be trying to read with would finding that really difficult because they'd be distracted by the fun and things and the noise that's going on around them. Whereas if I go to a quiet space or into the corridor with them where there's no other children, they're much better at focusing, and then they're much more successful with their reading. So it's just a factor to be aware of. And then the time of day as well can make a really big difference. I know teaching in reception and sort of year 1, you really notice that in the afternoons, the children find it much more difficult to concentrate on the more taxing things like reading and writing. So wherever possible, we try to do reading and writing on a morning where they're most fresh. They've just come to school, they're feeling fresh and bright and ready for the day. So it's not always possible. I'm fully aware of that, but it is, trying to read just before bedtime is probably might not work out, or just before tea when they're feeling hungry. I know if I try and read right before lunchtime, it doesn't always go to plan because the children are just thinking about their hungry tummy and what's coming for their lunch. So just trying to be aware of those things can often help. Number 6, so using our Active Learn website. So the letter that was sent to you before the holidays linked to a YouTube video that I did that was just a little walkthrough of how to use this site. Hopefully you've all seen that by now. So the key with using this online reading is to do it little and often. So you don't need to sit down and do full books, all in one go, or 2 or 3 books in one go. If your child, does 4 pages of their book, and then they're seeming to get a little bit restless, not really, engaged with it, then that's fine for that day. You can stop, you could come back to it later, or you could just leave it until the next day. You don't need to be reading full books. Little and often, is the best way to do it, especially at this age. Now, we have to put there 3 times a week minimum. That's what, on our homeschool agreement, that's what you all agreed to do, is to read 3 times a week at home. But at the moment, they're not actually getting read with at school. The majority of the children aren't in, so they're not having that extra reading at school with us. They're not having that extra whole class reading time that we would have in school. So sort of more than 3 is really what the children will need. But just short bursts. It can just be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be a considerable amount of time. So the books that are on Active Learn are matched to the children's phonics ability. So their class teachers will specifically set the books for your child based on where we knew that they were with their phonics learning when we last had them with us, and based on the information that you're giving us on Tapestry about how they're getting on with the phonics sessions and things like that. So we know that those books are right for your child, whereas using other books, I know you can buy lots of lovely books that are phonics based books from the shops, but they can sometimes be a little bit confusing for the children. If they maybe have some phonics sounds in that the children haven't learned yet, that might throw them and affect their confidence. So using these ones will make sure that it's right for the child, it's at their level, it's going to help them with their development. So yeah, it's a fantastic resource to use and make the most of. And then tip number 7, this was on our bookmark that we sent out to you before the holidays, and it's about the importance of the children's reading position. So sometimes we might not think, as adults, we might not think this is very important, but it makes a real big difference for the children's concentration and how successful they are with their reading. So sitting at the table, feet on the floor, so not sitting on the sofa or lying on the floor, so trying to sit at a table, so sitting up straight, feet both on the floor, and putting the book flat on the table. So sometimes the children sort of hold it up like this, whereas it's much better to rest it flat on the table. And if you're using a tablet or an iPad and laptop and things, it is a bit more difficult, isn't it? But if you're using a laptop, have it on the laptop on the table in front of the child, or the iPad laid down flat in front of the child on the table. And then we use our Peter pointer finger to track the words where we're reading. So that's when we do do disco, all our fingers have different names, and our pointer finger is called Peter pointer. So Peter Pointer always needs to be underneath the word that the child is reading, helping them to go along, helping them to spot the sounds. Or if your child sort of coming towards the end of their maybe year 1 and into year 2, they might start to just use their finger down the side of the line just to help them keep themselves on track. But at this stage, unless your child's class teacher has said that, you know, they're ready to move on from that, all the children need to be pointing, even though they're reading on an iPad. You know, we still need to be doing that. It makes a real big difference, because the connection between, you know, the hand-eye coordination, our eye is automatically drawn, and it helps our focus by pointing to the words. And then if they're reading, you know, real physical books, you know, turning one page at a time, we always you know, get them to turn and turning the right way through the book as well, and making sure the book's the right way up, which is very different when we're reading on a tablet, but it's little tips for when we're reading physical books. Tip number 8 is to ask the children questions about their reading. So I've just put 6 simple question starters on there. So when questions, so it might be like, you know, when do you think they went to the park? Or when did she go to school? So when questions from the story. Where? So you might say, where are they in the story? Where is the setting? Where did they go in the car? What questions? So, you know, what are they doing in the story? What happened on that page? Who questions? So asking about the characters. So who was it that fell over and felt upset? Or who was it that came and saved the day? How? So like, how did that happen? Or how did they solve that problem? And then why questions. So they're often the hardest ones. So why do you think that happened? So these are little questions to ask sort of as you're going through the book. You know, these are good questions for asking when you're reading to your child or when your child is reading to you. They need to be used in both cases. And when the child is reading it for themselves, sort of stopping after maybe every page or every couple of pages, and maybe asking 1 or 2 questions just to make sure that the children are understanding what they're reading. Because when children are very early in their, you know, learning of phonics and their reading journey, as they are in reception in year 1, they're working so hard on spotting those high frequency words, spotting the sounds they know, using Peter Pointer, you know, sounding out and blending. And sometimes they then lose sort of the sense of the story. They forget what actually is happening in the story, and they haven't actually really taken in what the sentence said. So stopping and asking a couple of questions and getting the children to then go back and have another look if they can't remember, if they don't know the answer to something you've asked, say, oh right, let's go back and have another read then, let's see if we can find the answer, just to make sure that they're not just robotically reading and not actually reading for any sort of meaning or understanding. So that was tip number 8. Tip number 9 is to make the most of our online resources that we will reference you to during you know, our home learning posts and our phonics video lessons. So Phonics Play is absolutely fantastic. There's so many different things on there, and they are perfectly matched to your child's ability. So for example, my children are all doing phase 3 learning, and we're learning particular different sounds during phase 3. So I will often say in the phonics lessons, right, I want you to go and play Buried Treasure Game, and I want you to select phase 3 and the sound, so that I know that that is a game that is perfectly matched to your child's reading ability. It's not going to be too hard and have sounds in that they've not learned yet or words that they've never seen before. It's going to be at their correct level. So Phonics Play is brilliant for that. Education City, you can explore and play on there, you know, as you would like to, and look at anything that you come across that's of interest. But we can also set the children work on there. So in reception, I've been setting phonics activities on there. They're interactive sort of games on there that have different sort of elements like reading and spelling and different sort of elements to the lesson on there, but they're nice and interactive and keep the children engaged. I know lots of the parents have said that sometimes they're, you know, struggling to keep the children focused, and that little games and interactive things are a good way of doing that. And then Espresso, you don't have an individual login for that, it's just a general login, but on there are lots of different videos, so video lessons, so videos introducing new sounds and showing words with new sounds in. So that one's good for videos. And Education City, we can set specific work on there, and I can see how the children have done. And then Phonics Play is precise phonics activities matched to the phonics teaching and ability as well. So they're all fantastic resources. And then finally, tip number 10 is just around the terminology that we use with the children. I know when I first was training to be a teacher, some of these words on this list, it was mind blowing. I was thinking, oh, I've never seen these words before. What do they mean? So just having them on a little list like this, I just thought might be helpful for you. I've tried to make it as simple as possible, the explanation, so that you can refer back to it and sort of use this language with the children as well. And hopefully watching the phonics videos that the children, the teachers in reception in year 1 have been doing has helped you to sort of pick up some of these words as well. But pure sounds is what I mentioned earlier, which is sort of how we would say not m, and s, not s. So that's our pure sounds. The phoneme is the sound it makes. So s is a phoneme, it's a sound, and a is a phoneme. A grapheme is how a sound is written down, so the actual shape of the letter. So the phoneme is the sound, the grapheme is what it looks like written down. A digraph is when 2 letters make a sound together. So in the word snail, there is the A sound, which is made with an A and an I, so that's called a digraph, the AI digraph. And there's lots of others like double E in C is a digraph. Double O, like oo in zoo, is a digraph. So any 2 letters that are making one sound together are called a digraph. A split digraph is still 2 letters making one sound, but where another letter has gone in between. So in cake, the A and the E there are actually working together to make the A sound, but they've been split up by the K, haven't they, in the middle there? So we call it a split digraph, and we put the little hyphen there just to show that the sound in the middle, there's a sound that goes in the middle there. A trigraph is a 3 letters making one sound, like the IGH digraph there that makes I, like in high, and night and sight. So tri as in tricycle and triangle, so tri meaning 3. Sounding out means how we break down words into their sounds to then be able to read the word. So for example, like I've put there, the word feet, if the children saw that in a book, they would go eat. And then at the end, they would say feet. So when they break it up into the sounds, eat, that's called sounding out. And when the children are then able to say eat, feet, that is blending, meaning they've then pushed the sounds back together and they've then been able to read the word. Segmenting the sounds is how we will often, a technique we will often use for spelling. So if the children need to write the word cat, I would say to them, get their thread fingers or sound fingers ready, and they put one finger up for each sound to help them break it up and write it down. So if they were writing cat, we would do cat. So the children would know that they would have 3 sounds and they'd write down the letters for each sound. Okay, so sound fingers or thread fingers to sound out the letters. And then sound buttons and lines over here on this picture at the side, you can just sort of see on the word shell, for example, that underneath the sh sound, the SH digraph, there is a line because the S and the H are working together to make one sound. So we put a line under to show that they are together. So we have sh, then E just has a dot, like a button, a dot underneath, because the E is just on its own. So we'd have sh, E, and then the 2 L's at the end have a line as well because they are making one ul sound. We don't go sh, E, ul. We just go sh, E, ul. Shell. So buttons go under individual sounds on their own, and lines go under digraphs or trigraph sounds to help the children to know that when they're sounding that word out, for example, if they were sounding out fish, we don't want the children to go is, because that would make fish. So they need to be able to see the sounds together. So ish, fish. Okay, so that was a bit of a whistle stop tour. I do appreciate that, but hopefully you can refer back to this page, if there's anything that you're not sure about. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was useful for you, and we hope by keeping it just to 10 top tips that it wouldn't be too overwhelming or too much to be thinking about at home. You're all doing so well with the home learning. You know, you're having to do the job of the teacher as well as the mums and the dads and everything else that you have to do at home and trying to work. So you're all doing brilliantly and you're doing amazingly. And, you know, we're so grateful for what you are doing at home. So if you have got any questions about anything I've said, please, you can either email the school office and they will send it on to me, or you can ask your child's you know, their own class teachers, either, you know, by a little message on Tapestry or sending us an email so that we can give you a ring. We are always happy to help. Okay, I hope to see you all back in school soon, guys. Fingers crossed. See you later.